So the OpenFit are a brand new set of headphones from Shokz, who are obviously best known for making bone conduction headphones. These are not bone conduction headphones, they are air conduction headphones, which basically means that they put a speaker near your ear canal without blocking your ear canal, so you can still have some awareness of your surroundings whilst getting a little bit better sound quality than you get from bone conduction headphones. They're expensive. They cost £179 in the UK and $180 in the US. That's more expensive than any of Shokz's bone conduction headphones, but it is around par for some of the top open headphones like this out there, like the Clear Arc 2 headphones. So unlike Shokz's bone conduction headphones like the OpenRun, the OpenFit are individual buds, so you hook one on each ear and then twist it so the speaker rests in the top internal part of the ear there near your ear canal. They have like a flexible silicone hook, which Shokz calls its Dolphin Arc ear hook design, which is a good name, and this allows you to customize the fit a little bit, but really we have found the fit to be quite hit and miss. It either really works for you or it doesn't. Each earbud weighs in at around 8.3 grams, which is obviously a fair bit heavier than in-ear buds, but pretty lightweight for this open style of bud here. The buds introduce Shokz's direct pitch technology for audio, which should deliver higher sound quality than you get from bone conduction headphones, like I said, and you can adjust the EQ in the partner app as well. They have a carry case that also doubles as a charger. This obviously is something you don't get with the bone conduction headphones. The buds hold 7 hours of charge, and then there's a further 21 hours from the case, and then a 5-minute quick charge will yield 1 hour of playback as well. The buds have an IP54 water resistance rating, so they're not fully waterproof like some of the OpenRun bone conduction range, but that's more than enough to fend off sweat and rain during your workouts. There are touchpads on the outside of the headphones that control playback with taps and holds. You can customize up to 2 different commands on each side of the headphones using the partner app, and then the headphones have dual noise cancelling mics. This is for calls, which basically means that your voice should come through a little bit more clearly to the person on the other end of the line. It's not noise cancelling to improve the audio quality you're hearing yourself. Okay, joined by Kieran now to talk about the Shokz OpenFit. We're going to start with the fit of the OpenFit, which we've had very different experiences about. Kieran?
Yeah, I wasn't initially sold on the fit of the OpenFit. I think it's different to kind of obviously the in-ears and the overhooks, and it to me just doesn't quite sit naturally. It feels a little bit wobbly. It didn't quite grip enough, so 50% of the time when I was running kind of slow and steady at slower paces, it was kind of okay, fairly sort of disappearing. But whenever I upped the pace or went steep downhill, you get a wobble and it's noticeable. So they just weren't always comfortable, and it was a bit hit and miss for me. But
yeah, and I've had the opposite experience. These have been the best fitting headphones I've ever come across. Like, they just twist perfectly into my ear, sit really securely, but not in any way uncomfortable. I've worn them for long periods, outside of runs as well. And I've done track sessions, fast runs on hills, and they stay in place brilliantly. I think it's not the most flexible design, I think it's fair to say. So it really is a case of, does it twist in perfectly or doesn't it? And for me, it did, which is quite a hit and miss strategy, I guess, for Shokz is going to be the problem. I think they're more noticeable than the OpenRun, the ones that just completely go over the ear, but I prefer the fit. I tend to struggle with in-ear buds and comfort and stuff, so I think the fit was really good, but it's going to be quite hit and miss. Mike also had problems. I've heard of other people having them too loose, and that's not great.
Yeah, and I imagine if you were doing anything outside of running, like if you're in the gym, you want to do any kind of dynamic movements and stuff, they're not going to stay put for if you're doing HIIT workouts and stuff, I think. But
yeah, so hit and miss.
I found the fit in the OpenFit pretty good, actually. I struggled a little bit to put them on straight away because it's a bit of a weird concept, flip them over the ear and then having it just sort of sit around the front. It sort of feels like you've not got anything on. So I was worried the first couple of times I went out running in these that they were falling off, but they were fine. I didn't have any issues at all. It's very comfortable. You don't really notice them on your head. So definitely think it's a nice design in terms of fit.
So in terms of that design, now obviously the OpenFit is a massive departure from the Shokz headphones that we've seen previously. And one thing that I like that has been retained is that Shokz has kept these headphones nice and light. Though I do think that is at the detriment of the kind of reliability you get from the fit and the secureness of the fit of these headphones. Now, these are definitely the lightest, truly wireless open ear kind of air conduction based headphones that I've tested recently, so that is a good thing. But ultimately I do think there's a bit of an issue in terms of the weight distribution between the air hooks and the speaker units that deliver the audio. Now I will start by saying they haven't fallen out, but I have done some kind of sweatier runs. I've done some general gym workouts where they've been slipping and sliding around. In that race test that I did, I had to play around with the fit as well at the beginning of the race as well. I also went away and was kind of running around near the coast, and it was very windy there. and I felt them kind of wanting to fly out and move about, so I ended up actually taking them off because I was worried that they might fly off. So I do think Shokz maybe needs to look at that side of things, because ultimately I didn't feel 100% confident every time I went out running with them that they were going to stay put. They did, but they do move about, and I do think there's something to work with there on the design point of view. So I do like the fact they're nice and light. They do feel comfortable to wear. It's a good level of durability and kind of sweat resistance in terms of what you're getting here, but ultimately that fit hasn't 100% worked for me, and I do think that's something that Shokz needs to look at.
Okay, we'll do a quick word on the controls on headphones. So these are customizable. It's all on the touchpad. You basically get 2 controls each side, but you don't get as many controls as you can on other headphones as a result, because there's not that many options.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that you can tweak them, you can have your preferences. I found them fairly easy to use. You know, the taps, they seem to work. Again, they will wobble around though. They move if you're going to try and tap them, but
not for me. But
overall, I found them quite easy to use for the controls. I would have liked to have maybe had more options for the custom controls, but
yeah, I think I've worked it out basically. So I've got play, pause, skip, and then volume for the holds. But yeah, that's enough for me. But at the same time, I think I probably preferred using my phone for volume rather than holding a thing on the run. It's a bit tricky.
Yeah, particularly if you're moving at any kind of pace. I'm not a big controller of the headphones anyway. I normally stick them on, volume up on the phone, and then off you go. I don't necessarily fiddle too much, but
yeah, but they're there.
So in terms of controls, now Shokz has opted to go for kind of touch-based controls, so capacitive touch and kind of touch pads, as opposed to the physical controls that it typically uses on its headphones. Now, I am always the kind of person where I think you'd rather see physical controls on running headphones or sports headphones, because it's just easier to use and operate them. Now, in terms of those touch-based controls, I think these are some of the better integrated ones I've seen on sports headphones and running headphones in general. But again, when you're running a little bit quicker, trying to find that sweet spot to use those controls, generally for me, is trying to skip tracks or trying to adjust volume. It becomes a bit more problematic. Now, you can customize those controls in the companion app, in the Shokz companion app, which I've been using on an iPhone, and that's nice that you have the ability to do that. But ultimately, in terms of how well they are to use during runs, and particularly I think during kind of the race that I've done, and also just generally quicker runs that I've done indoors and outdoors, I think they're a little bit trickier to operate, and this is why I think using physical controls on sports headphones and running headphones is always a way to go. So it's a slight shame that Shokz has decided to kind of avoid going down that route for the OpenFit.
The controls on the OpenFit, I've a bit of a love-hate relationship with them. I think they're really good from the point of view that the touch control is very easy to tap when you're out on the run, and you don't need to find a little button, which can be a bit tricky on the OpenRun Pros and the OpenRuns. There's one big button on the OpenRuns, which is quite good for pausing, but there's 2 tiny buttons for all the other controls like volume and stuff, and they can be quite fiddly to get to. You don't have that problem with these, you just tap the top of it. But I do find with touch controls that I find that because it's not actually in the ear, I'm never quite sure where it is, so it takes me a few times to click it. The other thing about these is that because they're touch control and there's no different buttons on it, you're quite limited with what these can do. So out the box, you get the ability to pause it, and you get the ability to skip next and skip back, and also control voice. You can go into the app and modify the settings so that you can control the volume as well, but you have to lose a little bit of functionality when it comes to that skipping back and forwards. So it's a little bit limited when it comes to controls. They're okay once you get used to them, but I still prefer having a button, at least one button, which I know where it is and I can press it.
Big category here now. We're going to talk about sound quality and a bit about awareness as well. So obviously the idea here is that you're getting better sound quality than bone conduction headphones. You might as well start with that. Do they sound better than bone conduction headphones?
They absolutely do. I mean, first thing, they're louder. You know, your top volume is much louder. It's much more kind of fills your ears. You can't hear as much that's going on around, which we'll come onto in a sec. I don't think the sound quality though is still kind of up there with some of the best kind of in-ear headphones. It's maybe not as balanced. It's still not as rich. I think the custom presets do add something. You know, when you move into the kind of bass or whatever, they do change it up and make it a bit fuller. I also like the fact that in the presets you can create your own and then save them. But overall, the sound, it has me baffled a little bit, because when you put it up to full volume, it's all like the awareness disappears completely, and you can't hear what's going on around. So if you want to have them, that kind of bone conduction open ear thing, you almost have to run with them at half volume, and that enables you to hear around. So I guess it kind of makes sense, but at the same time I'm sort of baffled about why we want that. as a form factor.
It's like we've hit this sliding scale of sound quality of awareness, and they're trying to find that middle ground, and almost the middle ground doesn't please anyone in a sense. But the sound quality is good. I think I enjoyed listening to them outside of workouts. I even took them on overground trains, and they're okay. As soon as you're on really loud trains on the ground, they're not loud enough, even in the highest volume. So that hits on their lifestyle use. I think they've got a much fuller sound, certainly, than bone conduction headphones, and the bass is there, but you're not getting the passive noise cancellation of in-ear headphones. You're not getting any active noise cancellation, obviously, deliberately. And it's not as good a sound as in-ear headphones, which is always going to be the problem here. Definitely a loudness. So I have a run I often do down by a busy road, like an A road, and I was going, oh, brilliant, I can really hear my music, my podcast. I was going, yeah. But then, like you say, you get that moment of going, yeah, but I can't hear the cars so well anymore. So when I do hit, the part of that is on a road where I turn it right down. But so with music, like you say, you have to turn it right down. It's a bit pointless. But with podcasts, that is quite good because you are still aware with podcasts and you can still hear the podcasts. So that's quite a nice touch. But it's quite expensive headphones to have for podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when it comes to the sound, you're making a decision between these and the bone conductors or in-ears. For me, it's like, well, if the bone conductors probably do the awareness bit better, the in-ears do the kind of proper sound better. So you've got these things that are in the middle and don't do either of them great, and it just leaves me asking, why are you making the compromise? I'm not quite sure I understand it, but
and there are times when outside the running I really like it. Like, I'm sitting at home and I'm working, but I want to listen to some music, but I've got to be vaguely aware in case the kids kick off downstairs or something. It's quite nice, but it doesn't feel like it's solved this problem, which is basically an unsolvable problem of sound quality versus awareness. But it is better sound quality than bone conduction headphones, so there is that.
The other thing I've used them, we obviously were editing a lot of videos. When I use them to try and edit, the sound quality isn't really up to scratch as well. So when it comes into that kind of functional use, it was often, I don't know, I just couldn't get they weren't loud enough to sort of hear the audio and edit well. So I don't know. My crossover experience of office life wasn't brilliant either. But
you sacrifice a bit on both ends, kind of thing. Oh, they've got this noise cancellation for calls. Have you tested that at all? I'm hoping you have, because I haven't tested it.
I have taken some calls. I mean, I always find headphones for calls are very difficult. They don't really work. I didn't find it. People could hear me. I could hear them just about. It wasn't great. Yeah, it's pretty standard stuff.
You can take a call with them.
Yeah.
Sound quality is maybe for me where these fall down a little bit. When you're in a really quiet room or when you're out and there's no wind, they're fine. They sound really good. They're not that loud when you're outside, which is something that you get with the normal bone conduction headphones that Shokz have. But with these, I think it's even quieter. And when it starts to get windy or you're running past lots of traffic, I couldn't hear them barely at all. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts on the run recently, and I had to keep pausing it because it was a bit windy and I just couldn't hear the podcast. So I had to pause it until I got to an area where there wasn't so much wind. Otherwise, I was missing big chunks in my book. So I think the sound quality is okay, but the volume is very low. So with music, it's all right. You can sort of get it, and you don't need to worry about it being too quiet. But definitely with things like spoken word and podcasts, it's far too quiet for those. You can also modify the equalizer settings in the partner app. I've played around with that a bit. I've not really noticed a massive difference with the equalizer settings. Is it that you can notice it a bit, but it doesn't really have a massive impact when you're out on the run because the ambient sound and everything sort of takes it away anyway. So sound quality is not great. I still think the Shokz OpenRun Pro sound quality isn't great, but it's still a bit better than these.
Okay, so into sound quality, and arguably the biggest reason why we're starting to see these kind of air conduction, open ear headphones like the OpenFit is that ultimately they can deliver bigger, more powerful sound, more customizable sound that you ultimately can't really get on bone conduction headphones in general, and you don't really get on Shokz headphones as well either. Now, in terms of delivering that bigger, more powerful, more customizable sound, I would definitely say that Shokz does definitely deliver that on the OpenFit. Now, is it better than grabbing a pair of kind of cheaper, truly wireless headphones that you can switch to kind of transparency mode? Maybe not necessarily, but in terms of if you have been looking for something that works in the same way to bone conduction, but ultimately gives you a more well-rounded sound performance, and that's what you are going to get on the Shokz OpenFit. Now, is it as balanced sounding as the Shokz headphones like the OpenRun Pro and the OpenSim as well? I wouldn't say they are, but if you want something with a bigger bassier sound, you're getting that. There's definitely a bigger thud of bass, there's definitely more warmth in that sound profile. I would say that you can get, if you go to use the right EQ mode, you can get something that works a little bit in terms of offering a bit more clarity and detail as well. So those are kind of characteristics that you've been looking for in terms of sound quality from a pair of Shokz headphones, and you are definitely going to get there. As I said, I don't think it's it's the most balanced sounding headphones. I do think the OpenRun and OpenRun Pro offer something a bit more balanced and a bit more versatile, and that, you know, generally in terms of catering for different music and audio. But it definitely, you know, for me, the sound performance has been very good. And when you kind of introduce that kind of exterior sound, it doesn't get kind of drowned out from the sounds around you. And ultimately, that's what really matters, whether it can retain that sound quality when you're outside, whether you're in busier environments. And I think ultimately the Shokz OpenFit can hold pretty well on that front. And it's the same thing, I think, with, you know, handling calls as well. You know, it doesn't get massively drowned out, but are you going to get the best in class call quality? You're going to get that from, I think, other headphones ultimately, but it's been good enough, I think. So for me, sound quality has been very good. It's definitely a step up. Is it better, more balanced than what you get on Shokz's other headphones, or its bone conduction headphones? I'm not necessarily convinced, but I do think if you wanted more kind of power and bass, and I listen to a lot of kind of bassy music, I listen to a lot of drum and bass music, and that kind of, for me, it works a lot better. It holds that kind of warmth and that kind of bass response a lot better now than it does on the OpenRun and OpenRun Pro. But ultimately, I think you sacrifice getting something that feels a little bit more balanced, a little bit more versatile out of the box, but you do have those EQ modes to better cater it and get something that works for you.
Next up, we've got battery life. These obviously differ to Shokz's bone conduction headphones in that you get the case, which is obviously a big plus in terms of battery life in adding the case charging, and then on the buds, a decent amount as well. How was your battery life experience?
I wasn't impressed with this in any way at all. I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things I've sort of tested lots of different ways. I'm going to read you some stats. So I did a 20-minute run, and that burnt 10% battery, which is way below the 7 hours that this predicts on one. I had another one that I did 90 minutes, and it burnt 40%, so again, way below 7 hours. I thought that was to do with having the bass settings on, volume up, burning juice, but I've just done another one on normal and the volume low, and it still burnt 30% for an hour and 15 minutes. So this is not getting the 7 hours they predict in any way. So it's way below the claimed, I think.
I've done a lot more podcast listening, and I wonder if it's like almost a talk time battery life listening. Any kind of music, like I have noticed when I put the music on and I'm at home, it will go through it a bit quicker. All open headphones, when you start ramping up the volume, they go way quicker than they're listening, which I really dislike. I think at battery life listing should be, if that's going to happen, you should give 2 battery life listings almost, one for if you're listening to 100%, and some brands do that actually. I haven't had a terrible experience with battery life though, because like I say, I'd probably been equally music and podcast, and podcasts are a lot friendlier to the battery life. But the actual on the buds, I think, falls short of what you get from the OpenRun over-ear headphones to me in the actual real-world use.
And I think the big thing for me is if you were thinking about using these on a race day, if you're going to run a 5-hour marathon, I wouldn't be confident that they would last if you're going to listen to your music at any kind of volume. That for me is the big question mark here, whereas some of the others will. And the case is decent size. It's not terrible for carrying with you in a belt, but it's also not that small. So on a marathon, you wouldn't be carrying that. Maybe in an ultra, you'd be a bit happier too. But that it does charge very quickly. So there is that. So again, it's one of those ones where it's almost, ends up being, a lot depends on your use case. These aren't just going to be brilliant for everyone on battery life, certainly. If you listen to just podcasts, you'll probably get near the numbers Shokz say, but if you listen to music, you can expect a bit of a dive. And then one other note on case, if you're thinking about taking this out and you're thinking about like halfway around a marathon, you want to pop them in and charge them up a bit so you can go again, they've made it like a bar of soap, which is
here he is. Here in his soap cases.
Some manufacturers like to do. And I find it quite hard to open without dropping it. It's very sort of, the edges are made so it's like...
So if you're also in your dotage and starting to fumble...
so there's that. I wouldn't back myself to open this move at any kind of pace during a marathon.
On the Beats Fit Pro scale, it's not at the Beat Fits Pro level of slickness, which is the slipperiest item of anything in the world, but it is quite slick, definitely.
I still run around Chiswick looking for that case.
It's pink, should be easy.
So in terms of battery life now, Shokz is quoting shorter battery life on the OpenFit compared to the OpenRun and the OpenRun Pro headphones. Now, in terms of the battery life that I have experienced, I would say that if you are listening at louder volumes, if you are using particularly more demanding kind of EQ modes like the bass boost mode, then the battery life is definitely going to be less than the quoted numbers by Shokz. Now, I found using it for an hour worth of running with the kind of bass boost mode or EQ mode used, the battery life drop has been 30 to 40%. So that is significantly less than the kind of quoted numbers that Shokz has put out there for the OpenFit. Now, if you listen at quieter volumes, if you are using the other kind of EQ modes, kind of standard versions, or maybe the kind of more treble kind of focused EQ modes, then you are going to see closer to that number. But ultimately, I do think it falls a little bit short. I do think you need to listen to these headphones or use these headphones in a louder volume to get the best experience out of them. And ultimately, that means that you're not going to see that kind of numbers that Shokz is promising here. But I would say if you are, using them regularly, you are going to probably get maybe 5 to 6 hours out of them. I think you'd maybe generally struggle to get to 7 hours, but you do have that quick charge feature there to make sure you're topping up every time you put it in the case.
Battery life, I haven't really managed to test that much yet because I've had these less time than the rest of the guys, so probably defer to them for battery information. As far as I've got with these, I've basically had the longest run the longest time I've worn these for is for 3 hours with consistent music, and it seems to take the battery down by about half. But I haven't managed to test fully the capacity of these batteries. So go with the other guys on battery.
Right, verdict on the OpenFit Shokz. So the expensive headphones as well, we've got to take that into account here. They're the most expensive headphones even in Shokz's range. You buying these?
No.
Okay.
I mean, in short, no. I didn't hate them. I thought they were all right. It's the first time I've kind of run with this sort of form factor and used them. Wasn't in love with that. I think that's primarily one of the things for me is this isn't really a headphone that I would naturally go to. I prefer in-ears. I prefer the volume to be a bit louder.
Okay.
I prefer a longer battery life. And for overall, really, I think there's a lot of compromises you're making on these, and you're paying or being asked to pay quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
I think the bone conductors do a better job if you want the awareness. I think there are much cheaper headphones in-ears that will do everything else better than these. So they kind of fall between two stools for me. So
that's probably. I definitely think the problem is the pricing because you are compromising. And actually, I love these headphones. They work perfectly for me. The fit is brilliant. I like them on the run. I'm listening to podcasts, so battery life's not a big deal. I like actually. The music I listen to is not that bass heavy. I tend to listen to a lot of singer-songwriter, alternative stuff, so they're fine for sound quality in the office. But I would never recommend spending £180 on these because there are still situations where I can't use them when there's either not enough awareness, so they are fine for that if you turn it down. But mainly, like when I go travelling, they on a train, they don't block out the stuff, which is obviously the case with these headphones. So I do think it's a problem that you have to pay so much compromise. I've used a few of these open-ear headphones, and they're probably my favourites. Like I think the Clear Arc 2 have even better sound quality, but they're not as comfortable. They might actually fit you more securely. They've got this, it's like almost a clip-style fit. It actually tightens to the ear, which I found a little bit uncomfortable for long periods, but they do offer better sound quality, probably a more secure fit. Also, even more expensive though. So and then the ones that are cheaper, things like the Ola Dance headphones, I think do just as good a job, and they're available for less, although their RRP is also quite high. So I don't know. I wouldn't spend a lot of money on these. I personally would try and get a cheap pair of bone conduction headphones and a good cheap pair of in-ear headphones, like the Jabras were on sale for like 70 quid the other day, the Elite Active 4s, and then you could buy the OpenRuns, and that would be the same price as just these headphones kind of thing. And that's the problem. So yeah, I think the big thing is what you said. If you're compromising this much, you don't want to pay 180 quid.
And if you already own a pair of Shokz that are doing a job, you don't need to upgrade to these or go and have a look at it.
Definitely not. No, like there is some more convenience in having two headphones. Like it's a bit more lifestyle friendly, a bit less weird than popping a band on, I guess, in the office. But it's not that much more lifestyle friendly. You are getting an upgrade in sound quality, but you're not hitting the level of even £100 in-ear headphones.
And so, I think there's a counterpoint to even the band. Having the band in the office is a bit weird, but then when you're on the run. If you want to drop your headphones around your neck, you can't do it with these. You've got to put all those kind of things.
Yeah, and they don't have an off button, which is I should have said that at control. It's a perennial nightmare for me. Is no off button on headphones because then you're clipping them to you and they're playing, they're pausing, they're doing weird things. Anyway, so I love these headphones, but I cannot recommend you buy them. You don't like them, and also don't recommend you buy them.
Yeah, I wasn't sold on them.
Yeah.
And
So my verdict on the Shokz OpenFit, I think they're pretty good. I think when it comes to bone conduction headphones, I still prefer having something like the OpenRun because I like the fact that it's tied around the back of my head. I like the fact that I know it's secure on my head. I think the problem with these is that I don't like having two of them because you don't really notice them on your head. And I'm constantly worried that I'm going to lose one. They're quite expensive to lose one of these as well. So I do prefer the normal bone conduction headphones just because I just feel that they've set on the head nicely and I find them very comfortable and I know that they're on my head as well. In terms of sound, not great, but okay. I mean, they're fine for non-in-ear headphones, but if you're looking for great sound, you're not going to get it from these. I think it ultimately comes down to the price for me. £180 is quite a lot of money for these, especially when I don't think there's much of a benefit in comparison to existing bone conduction headphones. The main thing you're going to get is the fit's probably nicer for some people who don't like wearing normal round the back of the head bone conduction headphones. But really, for that price, I'm still going to opt for a traditional pair of bone conduction headphones.
So my verdict on these Shokz OpenFit and whether they are a good fit for runners. I'll start with the good, and the good is they are nice and light, they're comfortable to wear, they sound great, you know, you've got that kind of bigger, more customizable sound here, and you're getting good but not class leading battery life. The bad being that I'm not 100% convinced about the design and the air hook kind of secureness and reliability of the fit. And for that reason, you know, that is a reason alone that I don't feel massively comfortable recommending it as an option for runners. As I said, when I've got sweatier and I've been in kind of windier conditions, I'm not being absolutely satisfied with the reliability and the secureness of the fit. Now there's also the price. It's £180, $180. That's more expensive than any of other Shokz headphones. That does put it in line with other kind of open air, kind of air conduction true UIS earbuds. So things like the Clear Arc 2, which I haven't tested, but I tested the previous version. Things like the Ola Dance as well, which Nick has tested as well. So in terms of price range, it's kind of sits there. And things like the Sony Link Buds as well, which we've tested. But I do think that maybe these offer a kind of more reliable kind of sound performance in terms of what you're getting on the OpenFit. I've been testing recently a pair of headphones from Sivka, and they are £60. They're an air hook design like the Shokz OpenFit, but they are much more reliable in terms of that fit compared to the OpenFit. It doesn't have the kind of customizable EQ side of things, but out of the box it's very balanced. The sound quality is very, very good and kind of caters for a lot of different kind of genres very well as well too, and battery life is pretty similar as well to the Shokz OpenFit. So I do think you can pay less money if you're, you know, massively sold on this kind of open air kind of wearable kind of, you know, speakers near your ears instead of bone conduction. But I do think you can pay less for a better pair, a more reliable fitting pair as well. And I just think, you know, if we see another pair of OpenFit, I do think it needs to look at that design side of things to really kind of get a better kind of version out, because I think ultimately everything else is kind of there, but in terms of the reliability, the secureness of that fit, that is going to be a reason that I'm not going to use them long term, because I just don't feel comfortable that they're going to stay put in all of the kind of running scenarios that I would typically use my headphones and where I would run as well too.